And this is an interesting challenge to describe George, because anybody who's paid any attention on the listserv knows all about George. So he writes a lot about equipment and bike gear. So just to prove that you all know a lot about George, what's George's favorite type of bike pedal? Anybody? Bike pedal.
The pins. The
flat pedals, right? And I learned this. I put flat pedals on my Surrey fat bike, and it made all the difference in the world.
Yeah, they're good.
What do George and Pisani like to do in February?
Go somewhere colder than Chicago.
Boundary waters. And what do they do in the boundary waters?
Snowshoeing.
Snowshoeing. And what's their favorite weather in the boundary waters? Yes. The colder the better. All right. So, thank you for proving my point. You all know a lot about George. But what I'm going to try to do is tell you a little bit of insider information on what George has been like as a leader from my time on the board. So George was president for 7 years in this club, and during that time there were a lot of changes. Probably the most significant was revamping the website, taking it from a hand-built website with the efforts of like Cindy Reedy and Steve Josephs, who built the database long ago, and it was unmaintainable. And he, during his tenure, we made the switch to Club Express. He continued to broaden the club's geographic base, emphasizing that it's not just the Elmer's Bike Club, recruiting members from all over, and making it easier to post a ride, more transparent for ride leaders, but yet at the same time creating more standards for ride leaders. So in his tenure, introduced the idea that ride leaders was something that you would have to qualify for, have a bit of a training process. Leaders have different characteristics, and I think it's fair to say that George was a transformational leader. Things were very different, from when he started to when he ended. And he had help, of course, in terms of the website. Ken Hickey played the role of a transformative ride captain. And it was through my discussions with Ken that I really learned where they were going, and I really liked what I heard. And of course, John Reardon, all the hard work. So George, Ken, and John really formed the team that transformed all of that, and then introduced a lot of the standards for ride leaders. I was following that, and then, as we all know, Ken passed away suddenly in September of 2018. So, in a fit of passion, I called up George, said I'd be willing to fill Ken's shoes. And of course, as everybody knows, there's no contest to become a leader within an officer in the organization. So, of course, I was in. So I joined the board, and I'm a bit of a leadership geek. I follow politics. I read biographies, look at business leaders, historical models, historical figures, and I brought also some leadership experience to the board. I've been doing software test startups as an executive for 25 years. So I thought I was bringing a lot of management experience to the board. Well, let me tell you, George taught me more about leadership than any book I read or any mentor I had. And especially what George brought was a lot of experience in nonprofits, a lot of experience in government, and that's a completely different game when you've got volunteer organization. And he brought plenty of experience, with EBC to the presidency as treasurer and mountain bike coordinator. So I learned from George how to lead in the face of criticism, always trying to do the right thing for your organization. I saw how he expressed the passion for EBC, both to existing members and recruiting new members. His larger-than-life personality was a voice that would promote EBC during that time. I was a George president fan, for George as president fan within a few months of his assuming the presidency, and then after I got to know him, became an even bigger fan. So in my 4 years with George on the board, a few things stood out. One of those was his constant advocacy for braving the elements. He, along with Dawn and John, really popularized the winter activities, and really a lot of the credit for the awards we just had goes to George as an inspiration. Well, that came to a head in January of 2019. So Mother Nature brought George's favorite kind of weather down here. And we got a bit of Boundary Waters weather in Chicago at the end of January. And so he posted a snowshoe hike, and on the coldest day, probably the coldest day in the last 10 years here in Chicago. There was a fair amount of George critics that came out. I was happy to probably make my easiest call as ride captain after checking with our insurance company. I said, no, there's nobody, go for it. You are more prepared than anyone. And he led that hike with two other people. I didn't attend because snowshoeing at 20 degrees below zero isn't my definition of riding at the speed of fun. But I was really happy that he was leading that. And I thought, more than leading the hike, I thought George's conduct through a period of some pretty intense criticism was incredibly inspirational. Another memory is George leading us through the pandemic. I think he was the ideal leader for that time. We had to shut down the club, and then we had to advocate for cycling to return, but at the same time making sure we followed the state mandates. And I think we threaded that, and George's leadership threaded that needle perfectly. And at the same time respecting a lot of people who said, you know what, I'm gonna take a year off, I'm not gonna participate. And then finally, was George recognizing when it was time to step down and pass the baton, and recruited Jason. And I think was incredibly graceful at passing that baton. And I don't think he lied to you too much about
I don't think there was any lying. There might have been some pizza and beer involved.
Well, maybe. And some people might call. And it's so and that was of course a class act. So finally, I want to mention that George's guidance for me went beyond EBC as I faced some challenges in my life. George was there along with a number of others at EBC to support me, and was happy to have that. So George, I want to thank you on the behalf of EBC for your service, your passion, and inspirational leadership. For me personally, I want to thank you for showing me what a true transformational leader looks like on the inside and giving me advice along the way. And finally, I want to thank you for your support.
Sorry, I pulled a pistol on you. Is there a piece in here that's more important than the others?
That one that you have in your left.
Is this your work?
No pressure. No pressure, new guy.
That's very nice. Thank you, John.
I'd love to take credit for it, but the credit goes to the old board who did it all under your nose.
Well, thanks very much. Ron Richards' words really touched my heart. EBC's always been a family to me, not much, it's so much a bike club. And the club's all about mentors. I joined this club in 2005. Some people in life don't need last names like Mick and Magic and Michael, Beyonce. So I don't have to say this guy's last name, but Isaac was in a spin class in the wheel thing. And he gets up out of his bike and he says, "Let's go!" It's on a stationary bike. And I told Pastorino, I said, this one's nuts. I like this one. So we talked to Isaac. My first ride, I did this ride every Friday for 12 years, was the Blue Skies ride. It was at the Lombard Library. I met Betty, I met Bill Schwartz, I met Roland Porter, Hank Neubauer, just a whole who's who of EDC heroes. And I just loved the club right at the beginning. And then, as I said about mentors, Ray Delago, a couple years later, and Steve Josephs asked me to join the board as the treasurer. And I did so, and I was treasurer for 4 years. And I learned so much from Ray. Ray is probably the nicest man I've ever met, ever. But he just had extremely good judgment. He told me what things were important, what things were not important. My second mentor in the club was Baltimore Ortega. I had a temperament that really wasn't the kind of temperament that Ron talked about when I first joined the club. I was a little hot-headed, and Baltimore saw something in me I didn't see in myself. He thought I had leadership skills, he mentored me, he calmed me down, and I took it from there. And then when I took the presidency, fine gentleman, Tom Preston, preceded me, and a great president in his own right. I never expected to stay 7 years, trust me. I was gonna pretty much give it up after 3 or 4. Ken's passing was devastating to me. He had become like a brother to me, a very close advisor. And again, he had so many qualities that I lacked, and he helped bring me up. And when Ken, I still can remember Cindy Reed calling me with that news and me about falling on the floor. And I never really thought I could have a confidant like that, but that turned out to be Ron Richards, and nobody's replaceable in life, as you know. But Ron became a close sounding board for everything I've done. My leadership style is I don't like to lead by fiat, I like to get consensus, and I almost ran every little thing past Ron, because I just wanted to, I knew if both Ron and I are on board, it was probably good for the club. And I didn't let a lot of things bother me. When I was a trustee in the village, the lawyer told me, a lot of people are not going to like you for decisions you make, so make every decision what you think is best for most members. And in my case, that was residents. And that's what I did. I just tried to make every decision up or down what I thought was best. I think I left the club in a better place. And I said it's been a family for me. When Pastorino had 7 surgeries of breast cancer, 2010 and 2011, I received more support from this club, and so did she, than from both our families combined. It was not even close. It's not even close. I loved EBC that day in the spring of 2005, and I love it now. Thank you.